walls. And the reason why is because we would take our cattle right from here, down this way, and down another alleyway, and take them out to the pasture. That market that we crossed over used to be our longest tidal creek called Daniels Creek. It was owned by a very prominent man. His name was Charles Coatsworth Pickney. Charles Coatsworth Pickney was a signer of the Declaration of Independence. Now, with this, I will tell you that there were in between the two alleyways, which these used to connect, between the two, there was 114 duels in Charleston that happened in the alleyway. And the reason why is they were kind of secluded. They were on the outskirts of colonial Charleston. We're on the outskirts right now. We just walked on the wall of Charleston. And it was 3 by 6 blocks, so it wasn't much real estate to really have a nice duel. But when you used to have walls on either side, this was the best place to do it. Now I will tell you, I need 2 volunteers for this to show you what a duel actually used to look like in real life.
Oh, come on.
Alright, I got 1. You look like you want to be a volunteer. With those shades, you look good to be a volunteer. Alright, get on up here, boy. Alright, so I need you 2 right here, back to back. Now, the way it works is these 2 were not even dueling. Let's say me and you were dueling. I'm going to pick me and you were dueling. These are our seconds. They were doing whatever we needed them to do. So I need you 2 to take 10 paces for me and then turn around once you get the 10 paces. Go ahead. That's it. Now they were not trying to stab each other or anything with swords like in the very, very early days. But what they were doing is we were going to be shooting with smooth bore flintlock pistols. And they weren't very accurate. And so with that, that's all the distance you needed. Now they would go ahead and they would do this in the very early mornings of the hour. And they would usually put a hat or a coin right at the spot. And that is where we would stand. Now come on back, guys. Thank you very much. Everybody give them a round of applause. Thank you. Thank you. Rifle, they were smooth bore, even all the way to the Civil War. And we would go to those spots. There were several different ways that this duel would play out. One of the favorites here in Charleston is you would, if it was over a woman here, which was usually the way that it would work, is the woman would drop a handkerchief and she would back all the way up against the wall. And with that, the men would fire the second the handkerchief hit the ground. She would usually blow it up. Now the other one, the one that's more dangerous, is the man that challenged the other man, he had to shoot second. That is respectful. He was so not scared of death that he would go second himself. So if the other man was firing, he would usually suck in that gun like I have, and he'd turn himself to the side and be as small of a target as possible so that the other man would shoot. Now I'll tell you, out of all of those deaths, there was only 4, or out of all those duels, there was only 4 deaths. That's odd, right? The reason why is they did not mean to kill each other. They just came to restore their honor. Now, out of the 4 deaths, 1 came directly from one of the duelers themselves. The others, people beside them, looking over the duel. Because they would come here, and since they didn't want to kill each other, they just wanted to restore their honor. They would shoot up to the side or down. That's what happened, but with that you will have ricochets. And those ricochets will hit people just like you, onlookers. Also seconds. Now I will tell you, there was one duel that actually happened where 1 man did die directly. And right here in this alleyway, his name was Dr. Ladd, Joseph, or Dr. Ladd, the whistling doctor. He was a very good doctor here, but he would just whistle everywhere he went. He was a very happy man. And so with that, he became acquainted with a man of the middle class, but he helped him learn French whenever he came here to Charleston. And he helped this man of the middle class. He took him to places, he paid everything. He even would go fox hunting at a place called Middleton Plantation, my favorite plantation that you can go to. But they had this dispute over a woman. They actually went to the Dock Street Theater. They both saw the same actress, and they both went after her. And with that, she went after the man with the most valuables, and that was more higher in class in Charleston. That was Dr. Ladd, the whistling doctor. Now his friend got very mad about this, and he used his own money to publish in the newspaper how he was nothing more than a whistling doctor. And so with that, it got over in the newspaper, and so everything got happened. And that was fighting words at that point in time. So Dr. Ladd said to meet at this spot in the middle, which is right over here, at 7 o'clock in the morning. And their seconds would meet there at 6:30. So 6:30 in the morning. I believe the date was June 19th. The seconds did the same thing that you guys did. And then finally they got down here. They were ready for their respective tour. Now Dr. Ladd, he was able to have the first shots. So what he did, since he was a doctor, he didn't want to kill this man. He shot to the side. But his friend did not. His friend looked down that smoothbore rifle or that smoothbore pistol, aimed straight at his torso, fired. Since it's a smoothbore pistol, it is not very accurate. It's right in the hip. Now, I will tell you that his friend went off in Charleston with this second. They were very scared of what was going to happen next. Even though dueling was legal in the city of Charleston, it was still frowned upon. And especially if you hit someone. Now, with that, they took off, but Dr. Ladd was sitting here bleeding. And his second was trying to do everything that he could to make sure that he didn't bleed out. And so he's trying to tell him everything to do. But he's going in and out of consciousness because of the loss of blood. And so he finally tries to bandage him up in what we would call a tourniquet today. And he drags him all the way down. And by the time he gets all the way down to the end, he never comes out of unconsciousness. He actually dies. Lost so much blood. I actually tried to drag him 7 different blocks all the way down, zigzagging through the roads of Charleston, all the way to his house where he was then pronounced dead officially. He was buried 3 days later. That's a kid. Ann Bonnie. If anybody knows who Ann Bonnie is. Ann Bonnie lived here in Charleston at the Pink House. I'm still here today. You know, I get Captain Morgan a few times. Actually, a 4-year-old told me that the other day. And I told him that's the only pirate allowed back in Charleston. Also, there's a man named Steve Bonnet that came here. Anybody recognize that name? Bonnet. Steve Bonnet. If you ever watched Outlander, he's in there as Stephen Bonnet. But Steve Bonnet came here actually with Blackbeard. Blackbeard came here a total of 4 times. The last time he was not allowed back. And the reason why is because he came here with Stephen Bonnet. They did a blockade of our harbor with 4 ships. And with that, they demanded a few different things. Number 1 was gold. Number 2 was a chest full of liquid mercury, because that was a medicine back in the day for various different pirate diseases. And so they demanded all of this, and they got all of it. But they sailed off into the sunset, and we raised a tax called the pirate tax. Now we're going to get down inside of here. Once all of them are out, I'm going to sit you down, and I'm going to tell you about the rest of the story. But I want you guys to sit down and get some AC. 1704. I highly encourage taking photographs. If you want to, please just put on your flash. It gets more things inside of this dungeon. And if you want to take a photograph, take it inside of this doorway. So I'll tell you all about this when we get done and when I get you guys to walk around and have your own experiences. But I'm going to sit you guys down. Now the mannequins are not from us. They are from the museum.
I can't ignore.
I'll get you guys to sit down anywhere you want to. I'll see who gets the best seat. And I'll tell you why it's the best seat. Usually it's the most annoying seat. I'm not sitting over there. Is it?
Pull my pencil.
Is the best seat on top of those barrels?
No.
Dang.
What, Scarlett?
Barrels right there.
Whiskey barrels?
Wrong advertising, right on. So the best seat in the house is right back where you are.
Hey.
Now I will tell you, the most people that get touched and messed with down here are going to be women as well as children. Fellas, I'm sorry, but this isn't our place. This right here, this is going to be pirates, this is going to be thieves, these are going to be sailors, army men. And so this is the best place that they would usually mess with women because they haven't seen them in a while. And they just want to be a little flirty. Now, with that, I'll tell you what you can debunk for me, but I'm not going to tell you yet unless it happens, or until the end. Now, with that, I talked about we raised the tax. And that tax was to go out there and find Blackbeard, a man named William Rhett, the scourge of the pirates. He's already found multiple pirates and brought them back. He was tasked with going out there and finding Blackbeard. Blackbeard was already dead. So, he couldn't come back home with nothing. We raised the whole tax. And so with that, he went and got Steve Bonnet and his entire crew, and they held them down here. right on the very bricks that you are standing now. You can kind of see how it used to be cells. So I want you to ignore what you see today. This is called a colonial butterfly. So what is on this side used to be the same as that side. Same with this side as that side. Everything had symmetry. But because of years of, this used to be a, what was it called? This is the mail. Post office for several different years after it was abandoned, as well as during the Revolution. You did have different things. This was put in the early 1800s. This was put in during the Revolution. That was put in about 10 years ago. So it's many different things that you see here today. But the way the cells used to work, you can kind of see the line of the cells right here in the middle. You had a cell here, and it went all the way to here. This was a small cell. You had a cell here, all the way inside of here, and you had the door here. And you would have about 15 to 20 people in here, 10 to 15 inside of here, same as this. And this was open to the back door that went to the street. Now, I will say that Steve Bonnet's men, 17 of them died inside of here because of disease. One died from lice. Did anybody know you can die from lice? You can't. I have never seen it besides two of our tours, one on the Yorktown and one right here. He was living and eating off of sewage, and he was scratching his head tremendously. And so with that, he was scratching it with the sewage in his fingernails, and it became blood infections. People think that was a very common thing back in the day, but it was very common during World War II. One man died on the Yorktown from lice as well. Now with that, all of Steve Bonnet and his men were hanged at a place that we call the Battery today. Anybody ever been to the Battery?
Yep.
Battery's beautiful. Yeah, it's beautiful, right? Beautiful little park with a bunch of live oak trees and a whole gazebo where people go and get married and propose. But it used to not be that way. It actually used to be a sandbar. And at low tide, you could walk out and make all of these gallows where you can hang 4 men at a time. While a high tide, it would be about 10 to 12 feet high. So it would be over the gallows themselves. Now they went down there and they hanged all of the men 4 at a time, except for Steve Bonnet. Steve Bonnet was going to be hanged the next day. He had to watch every single one of his men die. And with that, the high tide came in, and they stayed there for a day and a half, which is 3 tides. And the tide had to go over their head. Now, Steve Bonnet was finally hanged the day after all of his men were. And he got down there, and he pleaded. And he said, "Judge, please, I plead to you, save me. Take my eyes, take my ears, take my nose, my arms, my legs. Take anything that you can. Save thy tongue, and I shall sing thy praises for the rest of my life." And the judge said that you and your men are all damned to hell. And with that, I hope you get there first, and you must hold the gate for them all. And so finally, it was his time. It took him 21 minutes to die. Usually it takes 5 to 7, as it did the rest of his men. But the reason why it took so long is because he was sitting there, and he was flopping around, doing the hangman's jig, as we call it. And Charlestonians took no pity on him. So big, strong men would go up, and his feet are right here in front of me. And they would, after a minute, they would hold his feet up and let him gasp for air just a little bit. The noose is very tight, but he can still gasp for a little bit of air. And they let him gasp for it for a whole minute, and then drop him once again. Let him hang there, flopping around, do the same thing over and over and over again. So finally, the judge said to knock it off, and it was time for him to die. And it took 21 minutes. Now after that, we put them all in cages in a sandbar that's halfway inside of our harbor. There's a white cross out there, and you guys might see it every now and then. And we put them in cages out there for 9 months. And those 9 months, they sat there dead, with the crows and all the other creatures that would go and pick at them and take their flesh off of their bones. And they sat out there as a reminder, pirates beware.